Hello, fairy finders and fairy seekers. Welcome to Fairy Quest and to part 4, the final part of attracting fairies. This video is about outdoor sanctuaries for the fairies, which are very similar to what we talked about for the indoor. So you could do a spa, you could do a vacation spot, a retirement home, a traveler's lodge, anything that you would like to do. Your imagination has no limit with this. If you're considering doing an outdoor sanctuary, and I'm just going to call basically all of this a sanctuary. If you're doing an outdoor, the first thing that you need to consider is the type of weather that you have, because that's going to determine what kind of building you create, what kind of setup you create for the fairies. It is obvious that if you live in a warm climate versus a cold climate, the way your sanctuary is made and the way it looks is going to be completely different. Obviously, every place has wind and rain, and wind is actually one of the main considerations here, because you'd hate to set up your sanctuary and all of a sudden the next day have it blown all over your yard because the wind picked up and was too strong. So when you're considering a location, pay attention to which way the wind normally blows. Now, there is a usual way 95% of the time, and then every once in a while you get that freak storm. But if you have a handle on which way the wind blows for you, you'll have an idea as to where a safe place would be to actually set up a sanctuary for the fairies. So if you would happen to have a stand of trees on your property that is safe from the wind, that might be a consideration. Also, maybe one side of your house, if that is the side the wind very rarely hits. Or maybe your house has a kind of alcove, kind of a right angle corner that you might be able to tuck the sanctuary into. If you're finding it difficult to find a location for your sanctuary, maybe a few of the following could help. You could place it under a large tree where the trunk actually blocks the wind. Building some kind of attractive stone wall that you could put up and put the sanctuary behind would also be an option. If you live in a snowy climate, this would also protect the sanctuary during that time of year. You could also encircle the entire sanctuary with stone if you wanted to, but if you enjoy having people see what you have created, then that kind of defeats that purpose. You could place the sanctuary next to a small building, such as a garage or a shed, if you really have no place around your house that you could place it. If you have shrubs, you could also put your sanctuary behind those, within those, although not all shrubs keep their leaves in the wintertime, but if yours do, this would be a fantastic place. It would be a good windbreak. These are just a few suggestions, so let your imagination help you out here and see what you can come up with for your fairy sanctuary. Once you figure out your fairy sanctuary location, it's time to consider what you are going to place your building or buildings on so that there's very little maintenance. If you put it on grass, that means moving everything and mowing or weed eating, and I don't think that the fairies would be very appreciative of having everything moved so often. Grass grows so fast. So rather than grass, you could consider doing like plastic and wood chips, like they do for landscaping, for growing flowers and things like that. You could always put down some brick and build your sanctuary on top of that. Now, this doesn't require necessarily any mortar in between the bricks or anything. You could just dig out for the bricks and make it flush with the ground, or a little bit raised even, and just put them close together. No mortar required. You could consider building on treated wood planks. they wouldn't last forever as long as brick or, well, and plastic doesn't always last all that long either, but it would be a good start and they would last a good while. You could find some large flat stones or a large flat stone and place it on the ground and build on top of that. Or you could, as suggested with the brick, dig out a little bit and put your stone into the ground. So once you've decided what it is that you're going to build on, now it's time to consider what you're going to build. If you live in a warm climate that doesn't have a lot of storm activity, you could build yourself a wooden structure that has kind of an open air to it. In other words, you wouldn't have to really worry about windows or anything like that, because even if things get a little bit wet, it's okay. It dries out quickly because the climate is so warm. Obviously, though, if you live in a warm climate that has hurricane times in the year, you are going to have a sturdier building, or just do your fairy sanctuary indoors. If you live in a climate that is warm in the summertime and cold and snowy in the wintertime, you're going to want a sturdier sanctuary for the fairies, but you're also going to need a way to keep the structure warm in the cold months and keep it cool in the hot months. The warmth obviously is the most important, and this is where that sign that I talked about that says some magic required might be the way to go with this. You can obviously build a fireplace within your fairy sanctuary and make sure that it vents out the smoke, and make sure you have wood for them to burn and things like that to keep the building warm. In this case, I would suggest doing the majority of the building out of stone, because that way you know that it will not catch on fire. Whatever structure you decide to build, you will need to make sure that you use like polyurethane to coat the outside of this structure. That will be safe because it'll be on the outside. You won't have to worry about the fairies getting sick from polyurethane. It dries clear and it's odorless, basically. Once it dries, there is really no odor, especially if it's outside. And use more than one coat. Normally what I do with mine is I do about 6 coats, and it can take up to 2 weeks to coat all parts of a structure. However, it's worth it because rain just flows right off of it and snow will not destroy it. It will stay in good solid condition for you for a good long time. My suggestion for building is to do the majority of it out of stone. When I do stone, I use a large bag of fish gravel, actually, Riverstone fish gravel, and that works very well for me. However, it is a long, tedious job to do tiny gravel rock on all the walls of your sanctuary. So you could also use smaller Riverstone and glue those in place. Obviously, if you build in stone, you'll have wood underneath. I create my homes out of popsicle sticks first and then cover them with stone, and I always have double of everything on my house. My walls are built like regular house walls, our house walls, not just single layers. They are sturdy. That way, the stone that I put on is going to just make that sanctuary even more sturdy. Stone holds cool, and it also will hold hot. So it's a great thing to use for the outside of a sanctuary. Not to mention that it would be heavier, which means less chance of wind picking it up and taking it away. Now, most of this through the Attracting Fairies video series has been pretty much common sense. Sometimes, offering up these kinds of videos, it's just a matter of maybe putting the little idea in your head and making you go, ooh, I would like to do that. Once you create your home for the fairies, whatever it is, the travel lodge or the spa or just a place to hang out for that matter, once you create it, you can do the outside landscaping of it any way you wish, with rocks and with little trees and plants and fountains, and whatever it is that you wish to do is going to be absolutely phenomenal to the fairies. They do love flowers. I think pretty much any fairy, and I'm not just talking the ones that look like Tinkerbell or that idea. I'm pretty sure they all love flowers, so if you were to create a flower garden for them, that would be amazing. They would love that. And some might really enjoy having like a rock cave. You could even create your location with all rock, meaning make the building out of rock with larger rocks, like a cave almost, only decorated inside in a really cool way. Consider perhaps teepees, if you're planning on doing it inside or, only during the warmer months outside, consider a teepee. You can really create some amazing ideas with teepees. You can use leather, to wrap the teepee. You can use fur for the inside on the ground. It would be very soft. You can create a bed out of something super soft and just make it an amazing experience in this teepee. So many ideas. If you let your imagination run and just see what you can come up with, you will have a lot of fun with this. And again, it is really addicting once you start getting into it, if your soul calls you to do so. And that's a specialized thing. If you believe in fairies and you enjoy creating and you want to do something a little bit different, here you go. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed this short series. Again, it was just pretty much an exercise in getting your imagination rolling. Until the next video, take care.